Minary and a half.
Sure.
Yeah, Minary and a
reports existing home sales in January and the market manufacturing and services PMIs are due out Wednesday and Thursday. It's the usual update on weekly jobless claims and January's leading economic indicators. Consumer and business news, Joe McConnell, NBC News Radio.
Okay, so
Correct,
5 tacos of cheese and a large soda, that's $10,012. Please drive around.
Wait, 10,000 what?
It's obvious you're buzzed and driving.
I've only had a few. I'm fine.
Yeah, the food's $12, but getting pulled over for buzz driving could cost you around $10,000 in fines, legal fees, and increased insurance rates. Please drive around.
Yeah,
Actually,
thank you very
just
much.
10 seconds.
Nothing kills a buzz like getting pulled over for buzz driving, because buzz driving
thank you.
is drunk driving. Brought to you by the
What
National Highway
timing.
Traffic Safety
I was
10
panicking.
Ad
seconds.
Council.
Got my drums.
Get your
I know you all
bongos.
always miss that. Clyde really misses it.
Duncan Holder on a Monday, February 19th. Larry Holder, Jeff Duncan, Clyde Verdun here in our NOLA.com Times-Picayune studios. Dave DeCourbier back at iHeart Central, taking care of all the important stuff like keeping us on air and such. Busy weekend of sports. College baseball, of course, we dove big into that last week by having on Blake Dean from UNO, Travis Jewett from Tulane, and Paul Maneri from LSU. So we'll touch a good bit on college baseball. I was talking with Clyde before the show. Man, if LSU basketball, if they could have flipped maybe one or two results in the SEC, we'd be talking about legitimately having them at least on the bubble for the NCAA tournament. They picked up a significant win at home against Missouri, who seems like they're well on their way to the NCAA tournament. Thank goodness I did not give Jeff any of my money for the LeCompte because all of his flushed down the drain as Bizarro, Bravado, whatever the horse's name is, whatever. Add them all together, and it's all a big wash for anyone doing some handicapping.
Well, yeah, it's not all just about betting, you know. I mean, it's about the horse making it, qualifying for the Kentucky Derby.
Hence, you bet on them. And
That sounds like a real loser take. Oh,
No,
hey,
I mean,
you may have lost a lot of money, but oh man, I really care about this horse going to the Kentucky Derby
than just betting on the races. I mean, it's a big event. There were a lot of people out there. It was a great day. A lot of people go out there and do not bet a penny. They just go out and enjoy the
like to see the ponies.
Yeah. There's a lot of kids go out there.
Yeah, but they got a lot of people who bring their big wad of money.
Oh, there's no doubt. There's no doubt. I mean, but for the connections, for the the fun story there was Miguel Mena, the jockey, was not scheduled to ride this horse. Gary Stevens was supposed to ride the horse, and then 2 days before the race, he gets a call from Wayne Lucas and says, "Hey, we got an opening because Gary Stevens is committed back here in Oaklawn," and so he gets to ride. Now he's going to be in the Derby. He'll be in the Kentucky Derby riding this horse, all because of Gary Stevens' change of plans and not riding. So his gain was Gary Stevens' loss.
And, of course, the NBA All-Star Game. The talk was the end of the game where I think a little defense was actually played. I think that's been a big storyline. But
all of scored 140 points each.
Hey,
that's actually less than what I thought it would be.
Do you understand that the Pelicans, when they last played, they scored 139? So it's not that much different.
I'm not getting into this defensive narrative, which you're right.
I'm talking about the last 4 minutes of the game. They decided to play a little defense.
That's true.
That's all I'm getting at.
Right.
And I'm going to give, and I'm sure we're all going to have our opinion on All-Star Weekend, because me personally, I'm just tired of hearing the complaints about it. It is what it is.
Right, I agree.
I'm tired of, what can they do to improve it? It doesn't matter. It's a celebration. You have these fun events. Now, you could do without the national anthem gone awry and then Kevin Hart and whatever else. Clyde, you were trying to explain this all to me.
Kevin Hart and Jamie Foxx and Rob Riggle and all that stuff. We don't need
all of these literal comedians up there and just acting like jokers, and it's a disaster. And people are wondering what's going on.
It's a celebration of the NBA. It's basically their weekend to take over the stage, and you just enjoy the incredible athletes, superstars. I'm a little concerned because I do like that athletes are speaking out. I do like that. I think they have a platform and use it. But I don't want this to become like an annual thing either. Like, this doesn't need to be, and I don't think it will.
I'm assuming you're talking about LeBron James and shut up and dribble.
Yes.
That sort of.
And that's ridiculous.
Craziness. But I don't think that's an annual thing. I just think that you mix politics and sports these days, and it's such a hot button topic that it blows up. This didn't happen, say, a year ago. It didn't really happen 2 years ago. I think it's just such a butting heads of each side of the coin that's what you get, and it kind of boils over into this. And I know people don't want to hear it. Some people want to hear it, so you're going to have this kind of mixed.
Well, it's Laura Ingram's fault. No one asked her to bring it up for the All-Star break when there's literally nothing else to talk about. That was her decision. That was Fox News' decision.
Right.
And don't come at us with this whole they should stick to whatever, because I mean it's like, so Michael Wilbon and Mark Spears on the Uninterrupted, I think, had it completely right yesterday. On the Undefeated, yes. Yeah. Had it unbelievably right yesterday in saying that the fact that you're taking time on your show that has had many sports athletes not sticking to sports on your network.
I could think of one in particular, Benjamin Watson. They love to tout him when he comes on.
Of course.
Kurt Schilling.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Big time. So if he says something they agree with, you're fine not sticking with sports.
Absolutely. And the fact that it's thinly veiled, why don't those people or those guys stick to whatever they do? Just you're bringing the onus upon yourself, because LeBron James didn't bring you into it. You brought him into your world. And if you thought that the backlash from that was going to be very small and insignificant, then I don't know what else Fox News is doing.
But my concern is, and as I mean this seriously, like, I think athletes should always speak out at any time,
whether you agree with them or not.
Right. I mean, that's the platform they have. They're more than athletes. They're human beings, and they're U.S. citizens first and foremost. But I think the concern is we don't want the All-Star Game to become like the Academy Awards. Every year the Academy Awards turns into this political speech-making event, and everybody's there just to see the movies, and the movie stars. They're not there to hear this preaching. That's, I guess, my point.
I would buy into that too. Now, but here's the thing. Look, that was calculated because it's NBA All-Star Weekend. And look, let's be honest. Fox News, I'm sure, knew that it would get hype over this, and that happens. ESPN has people go on there and hype things crazy, whether it's politically or not. I mean, that's just unfortunately part of our media business that you got to deal with. And so, hey, that's, as columnists, you and me, we don't necessarily do it just to do it, but if we have a strong opinion and we write our thoughts, I mean, that's what we're doing. So that's we're not there to just drive ratings. I mean, we're there to. We come from it, say you and me come from it in different angles than, say, someone on the left from CNN or someone on the right from Fox News, and they're driving for ratings. People might argue, oh, well, you're driving for clicks. No, I'll write in a popular opinion if I feel like if that's what I feel. I mean, you and me are not, say, Skip Bayless or anyone jumping on any of those shows, say, what's the Bayless show? I mean, what's it called?
Skip and Shannon,
Undisputed or something.
You got Undisputed, you got First Take, you got First Things First, you've got, what else am I missing?
That's a vehicle now that works. It's a proven commodity on television that debate works, and it's in debate. But you're right. And how many times, even going back to the days when we worked at the Times-Picayune, which we still do, but I mean, you used to hear a lot of people, when they don't agree with a column you write, they say, well, you're just trying to sell newspapers. Today you're just trying to get clicks. That's such a misguided perception. I mean, how many times has anybody ever sat in one of our news meetings or in our budget meetings and said, that's going to, sell newspapers? People don't talk that way in the business. You're not trying to just drum up interest. Now, you want people to read your column, but you're not doing it just for the sake of trying to stir the pot. You're trying to raise a point in how you really feel. And sometimes it's popular, sometimes it's not popular.
Right. And you and me have faced this both sides of the coin, where you could have one column where you're too much of a homer, or another one be like, I completely agree. Or on the other side, you're just doing this to be negative, or others agree. I mean, that's just what you and me run into every day.
Right. I hear it all the time. Oh, Jeff Duncan's finally being positive for once. And I guarantee if I went back and printed out how many positive columns I've written considered negative, it would be 2-1 at least. But that's just what people remember. It's their selective memory.
Yeah, absolutely. So, look, I do agree with you that I like hearing the NBA All-Star storyline of Anthony Davis trying to play in DeMarcus Cousins' jersey to give a shout-out to his fallen teammate who's trying to deal with an Achilles injury. I'm wondering why they wouldn't even let him play. I mean, it's silly. So what? You think Anthony Davis is going to get a foul? And I don't know who this person is if he's wearing the number 0 Cousins jersey. I can't recognize him. He's only known for a feature on his face, the unibrow. You can't distinguish him from LeBron James or Steph Curry. Come on.
But I do think that the format of having these players pick their teams was popular, and I think that was a hit. And we were always trying to figure out how they can create interest in these All-Star games. This one worked. Yeah. So as usual, Adam Silver and his crew, they're pretty shrewd.
Yeah, let's just hope that, because of course it's like Larry was saying, this is obviously the NBA's premier weekend. This is when Adam Silver has his State of the League address, and he obviously talked about a lot of things, the one and done rule, along with the biggest topic, which is always brought up towards the latter half of the year after the All-Star break, which is the NBA playoffs.
The seeding, right? His comments were interesting. Yes.
It was very interesting to hear him say that, and we could probably get into that later on in the show because obviously we have a load of time. But it is very interesting to hear how he goes about really thinking about broadly the state of the game, where it is, what things could be done to tweak it and all. And obviously the other thing that happened this weekend was the meeting between the NBA Referees Association and the NBA Players Association.
Yeah, but I think the seeding part, I think that's interesting. And let's dive into that later on in the show because I want to read his specific comments out on the air and just get your opinions on it because he seems very much for it, reseeding. Not just having it, conference?
Yeah, it wouldn't be conference division.
It would just be the top 16 teams.
I don't like
NBA.
it. So we'll get into that because I don't like it.
I don't know what my opinion is really on it. I just would want to put it out there and then we could talk about it because I think it's an interesting topic and one that we hear in New Orleans a lot because you always hear the Western Conference is loaded and 10 teams could get in and the Pelicans could have been the 6th seed in the East, but they're 10th in the West, and you hear that a lot. So I think it's an interesting topic specifically for our market here.
Yeah, there's no doubt. I'm a traditionalist and don't think you change decades of policy just because there's like a cycle right now where the West is more powerful.
All right, plenty to talk about. We want to get your involvement as well. 504-260-1280 is the number to get involved. And Monday Morning Quarterback came out today, of course, from Peter King. And he forecasts where all of the quarterbacks are going in free agency and the draft. And I want to read you, and we could talk about this, some possibilities for the Saints. Oh, by the way, Drew Brees is assumed he's coming back. So that's not the surprise parts, but some names out there and some faces may be falling into place because, look, the scouting combine's coming up at the end of the week. On-field workouts are starting at the end of the week. And so that's when everyone comes into Indianapolis, agents, players, coaches, you name it. This is where the wheeling and dealing really starts happening, even though you can't legally tamper yet, which is, of course, totally nonsense. So come on back here. Sports 1280, NOLA.com, and the iHeartRadio app. Dunc and Holder.
Yes.
Hi, Eric.
Morris Day.
And the time.
And the time.
And the time.
Forgot about the time.
Sports, politics, and news.
That's like forgetting about the blowfish.
Exactly.
We'll tell like
the iHeartRadio app. You can customize your stations.
Hey, Dave, listen to Hootie.
That sounds really good.
Or Hootie and the Blowfish.
Dave, are you going to see the Black Panther?
Already did it, man.
I'm about to say, you're thinking he hasn't already seen it?
I figured as much. Was it good?
Dude, it was friggin' awesome.
That's all I ever hear.
I loved it, man.
It was a licensed credit services organization, not a direct.
Yeah, I've heard nothing but rave reviews. They said it's blowing up at the box office.
Well, and here's the thing, though, too, is like you don't really have to know a damn thing about Black Panther because it's kind of like the first one. I mean, he showed up tangentially in Captain America: Civil War, but this whole thing is kind of like an origin story, kind of from the beginning, and I mean it was awesome, man.
Cool.
And the crazy part is, like we talked a little bit about it last night on my show, but I didn't really want to get into it too much. But it's like, I mean, the entire cast is black. There's one white guy, and he's basically there just because, So I mean, it's like one of those. Yeah, well, really, it's like I'll never know what it's like to be a black man in America, but I kind of got a tiny, tiny taste of what it's like to not see any white faces on the screen the whole time, and having the identifying with somebody in the major motion picture, because I mean, with the exception of maybe Blade or just that's about it though. Like for black comic book characters.
Yeah.
They had Blade, but that's he was surrounded by white dudes. He was just the main character.
Over the weekend,
We will definitely
Or like Spawn.
Yeah, right. Hey, John Leguizamo, so that's just bad news, right?
Yeah, right.
actor Sally Field is not shy about landing her son.
But yeah, I mean, when I went Sunday, I was looking for tickets on Thursday to get some on Friday to go with my kids. And, dude, this shit was sold out. I mean, all the way up to, like, Sunday night
crazy.
even. Yeah, I mean, this had a bigger opening box office weekend. I think they made $80 million in the first weekend or something.
I think they moved more than that.
Well, no, right. Like on the Thursday before.
Oh, I got
Thursday,
you.
yeah.
Yeah, they were saying like $200 million.
Yeah, like 195 million a
it's-
weekend.
It's going to end up being the biggest top-grossing movie from Marvel ever.
She's working on a very special project due for release.
But yeah, it's like, because we went Sunday, I mean, the place was packed. I mean, it was just absolutely packed.
Really? Wow.
Up next, we have Satchmo. Satchmo is a member of the Shelter Pet group.
That's right.
It was fun, though, I mean, and it looked awesome, too.
And of course, companionship.
Yeah, I bet. That's the great thing about the new technology with everything. All the new, I'm not a big science fiction guy or action movie guy, but I guarantee with all the new technology, it makes it a million times better to go to shows.
Visit the Shelter Pet.
Yeah, right.
Adopt.
Brought to you by Maddie's Fund, the Humane Society of the United States, and the Ad Council.
Arden Keys stopped dropping.
This is
Big time.
Dunc and Holder on Sports 1280, New Orleans.
Welcome back, Dunc and Holder. 504-260-1280 is the number to get involved. Keeping this like a football Monday show, wide open, so lots of topics bouncing all over the place today. So feel free to get involved in any of the topics. And Jeff, I want to kind of piggyback of what you just said right before we went on the air, because right before we went on the air at 10:05, I retweeted something from Daniel Jeremiah, who's, of course, the big-time scouting guru for NFL Network and NFL.com, and it had to do with DJ Chark. And he said, finished studying LSU wide receiver DJ Chark last night. Love his game. He's going to be an excellent number 2 wide receiver with return value as well. So we kept hearing his name kind of rising right after the Senior Bowl because he had such a big game. And I remember Daniel Jeremiah talking about how Chark had no buzz going into that game.
Yeah.
And going into that week. And you're starting to see that. The Combine's coming up. He's going to be able to kind of put his skills on display. And I'll also kind of spin it to the Saints. I would not be surprised at all if the Saints drafted a wide receiver at some point. I would say probably not round 1, but since they don't have a second-round pick, I would not be surprised if it's round 3 or in day 3 that they maybe take a look at a wide receiver, because even if you bring back someone like Willie Snead or Brandon Coleman, it would be just for one-year deals probably, and it would be at biggest a restricted tender, which I don't think either one of them should be tendered, because I don't think they deserve multi-million dollars for a single season just by their production.
I think they'll get tendered. I do, but
do.
Yeah, I do. I think they'll tender them both, but I agree with you on the receiver in the draft. And in the past, the Saints have not invested very highly at the receiver position. I know they drafted Brandon Cooks high, and Mike Thomas was a second rounder, but in
Robert
this instance,
Meacham back when.
But in this instance, you already got your number 1 guy, so you're trying to find somebody that eventually is going to replace probably Ted Ginn as the number 2. So I think they use they'll probably look at a guy that they have graded high that falls, and they get him in the mid-rounds. I'll be surprised if they draft one, say, the first round for sure.
First round is going to be out. Yes.
And then they don't have a second rounder. But in this year, it's not a great year for receivers. The top receivers, Calvin Ridley from Alabama, Christian Kirk from A&M. Those are the only two, at least according to NFL Draft Scout, the only two surefire first-round grades. This Sutton kid from SMU. But most of them are, like Chark has now got a second-round grade. He may go before the Saints, but if he were to fall, say, to the third round, someone like that has a second-round grade that has good value, they might invest a third-round pick. I could see them doing that.
Yeah, I could see them doing that too. And you look at another prospect, and that's I'm keeping it kind of the LSU connection because we know Chark's going to be at the Combine, and Monday is a day where a lot of mock drafts come out. I know we'll get started our Saints mock drafts after the Combine. So we'll be coming out, you and me and Josh Katzenstein and Herbie Teope. We'll have, I think you and me will do one week, and they'll do one the next week. And it's funny, I think by the end of the week, I'm going to have my, I do it last couple of years, mocking our mocks. Just to see how close or how far away we were.
That's easy to do, especially when we do so many of them.
Exactly. So I'll probably take a look back at that just to see how accurate I was. But we know the edge rusher spot is certainly a big spot for the Saints. I'm curious to see where they go there, when they take one, if they take one, because we were figuring all last draft season that they would take one high, and they didn't take an edge guy till Trey Hendrickson. It was their third round pick, and so that would be their 5th overall pick in last year's class.
Yes.
So they waited. Now, I was certainly a big Derek Barnett fan, but I'm spinning it back to LSU. Arden Key. I mean, we're curious to see what he does when he gets in front of NFL teams and has to answer the tough questions about why were you sitting out? Why did you take basically a leave of absence? Because we feel like when he gets on the field for some of these workouts, he's going to be a monster. Like, he's a physical specimen.
Yes.
And so that's not in question. The question is, what is going on behind the scenes? And then when you come back, you're overweight, and you got to get back into shape. And, Jeff, you were just kind of looking at his stock, and it seems curious, his stock going into the Combine.
Well, it's dropping according to NFL Draft Scout. He's down in the second round now, at least the bottom of the first, early second, which is right where the Saints pick. But knowing their history of not taking character risk, if you want to call Arden Key a character risk, he certainly has red flags for different reasons.
Might as well just say he's got red flags.
Yeah, he's got red flags. That's probably the way I would term it. I don't know. They do have to do their homework on a kid like that, but he does have the skill set they're looking for. I mean, they compare him. They always have these compares to analysis, and they compare him to Derek Thomas, former Chiefs.
Well, he's pretty good.
Yes.
Last I checked.
Explosive first step, cat-like quickness. We know he's got that ability.
Where did he go to college? Derek Thomas.
Alabama, right?
Oh, then no.
Yeah.
You can't compare him to that then. Nope.
But
can't do it.
Derek Thomas went number 4 overall in the entire draft.
Yeah.
But there's no doubt the skill set, Arden Key, when he's in shape, when he's on top of his game, is elite. It's just a matter of, are you going to get that week in and week out, because he didn't even have that at LSU, especially this past year. It was a disappointing year for him. There's no way around it.
After what he did 2 years ago, yes, absolutely.
Oh, when people were pegging him as a possible number 1 overall pick after the 2016 season.
And I think there's some people out there that will have flashbacks to Kiki Mingo, who did not pan out in the NFL, was too light, never really became an every down player. Now he's still in the league, but I think he was drafted in the top 10, wasn't he?
He was the 5th overall pick, I'd like to say.
Correct. And is already, I think, on his 3rd team now. And so people are going to have concerns, but Key is a bigger player and certainly had more production at LSU than Barkevious Mingo, who was just mainly kind of a combine freak. I mean, ran incredibly fast, But
well, he was productive at LSU. He was more than just a combine freak.
Well, I mean, he wasn't that productive.
But he jumped.
That was one of the questions, was he didn't have a ton of sacks.
Well, he jumped when you got to the combine because you're just thinking, all right, we could develop this kid because he's so athletically gifted.
And I think that's what hurt Danielle Hunter, and he's had a much more productive NFL career than Mingo. That's why he dropped, I think, because he came on the heels of Mingo. I'm not saying that's the only reason, but there was some concerns. Hunter did not blow up at LSU. I mean, he didn't have a ton of sacks. I think he had like 6 or something.
You were so high on him coming out of that draft. You need to pat yourself on the back. You were beating the table.
Well, I mean, I think Clyde was with LSU at that time. I mean, anybody was around LSU, and you saw Danielle Hunter. He just looked. He was on the all-airport team. I mean,
well, that
guy looked the part.
So he was basically Martez Wilson. He looked like, boy, that guy should be able to play.
I mean, I've never seen a specimen.
It's like, wow, this dude is scary. Look, like, because he walks up to you and you're just like, man, just this dude is like, he is like encompassing of just like space. I think that I guess is what's so interesting about looking at guys from, I guess, 2 or 3 years ago, because I think you look at him and I think you look at a guy like Lewis Neal. And then I think you realize that, like, some of these guys like that LSU had were so underrated that they were not seen as these kids that were going to just absolutely make an impact real quickly. And then you see what Danielle's been able to do on a young line, on a really, really good young defense in Minnesota, and what they were able to do in Atlanta at the same time. You realize that, like, there's some really diamonds in the rough. And I hope for Arden's sake, because being around Arden enough as I did, Arden's a really good kid. He's a really good kid. He's a really nice kid. He never really caused any problems for us on that side. And he's a kid that I think you easily want to root for. So I hope that whatever is going on, whatever is happening in his personal life doesn't derail from the potential for him to be a very, very quality NFL player and change his life.
I think the concerns with him is just he's got a lot of people in his ear. He's got a camp, if you will. I agree. When I've dealt with Arden Key, he's not a bad kid at all, but you get a lot of people involved pulling at you. And look, the kid's was going to be – he was targeted for the first round after his, like, freshman year. I mean, people were already targeting this kid. Real quick, though, I want to bring out this line because I was looking for it online. The great Jim Murray line about Muhammad Ali applies to Danielle Hunter. I don't know if y'all ever heard this line, but he wrote about Muhammad Ali said, "I'd like to borrow his body for just 48 hours. There are 3 guys I'd like to beat up and 4 women I'd like to make love to." It's a great line.
Let's get Danielle on there and see if he agrees.
Yeah.
Rent out his body. It could be like an episode of Black Mirror on Netflix.
Yeah,
do some
right.
Crazy things. Danielle Hunter, rent him up. Martez Wilson, rent him out.
Yeah, he was like that. Martez Wilson, he would walk around the locker room, and you'd say, like, how's this guy not an All-Pro? He looked. He was chiseled,
and he was a dud.
But he was just, I guess, too stiff, maybe, or
too stiff. That was the big thing, and they couldn't figure out a position with him, and they tried him at defensive end, and it was one of those. It
just showed. And Stephon Anthony's kind of like that. I mean, he was ripped.
He looked the part too,
no
doubt.
But there's just it's more than just being a chiseled freak. You've got to be agile, and you've got to be able to process quickly. There's a lot of things that go into it.
Absolutely. So let's take a break right here on the show, and when we get back, I want to dive into this Peter King quarterback projection because he's got 2 names connected potentially to the Saints that make you kind of wonder, what are they going to do outside of Drew Brees, of course?
I'm curious. I'm curious. You got me curious.
All right, so we'll come back and go through his projections and of where some of the free agent quarterbacks and some of the draft picks early on pre-combine. Of course, this will change, but it's February. What else are we going to talk about? So let's do it here. Sports 1280, NOLA.com, the iHeartRadio app. Dunc and Holder. I can get down with this.
Come on.
Boy, I get down with this 80s.
St. Elmo's Fire.
St. Elmo's Fire, man. I watched that like 3 times. One of my first dates with my college girlfriend was
Happy
St.
Monday
Elmo's Fire
from the
movie.
Fox 8 Weather Center. I'm
I'll never forget it.
Shelby
And then we went back like the next night. We liked it so
with
much.
near record heat as highs
Who
climb
was in
into
that?
the
It was
low
Demi
80s
Moore.
this afternoon.
It was the whole Brat Pack.
Yeah, it was the Brat
Pack. With a mix of sun and
God, but
clouds.
who are the
Andrew
names?
McCarthy,
Temperatures will drop into the
Rob
60s on
Lowe,
both sides.
Joe Hirsch,
From the Fox
Ali
8 Weather Center,
Sheedy.
I'm meteorologist Shelby.
you remember all, man.
I've seen the movie like 30 times, I'm sure.
40% off.
Damn right.
PCs, electronics,
Damn right.
and accessories from Dell.
What was the
Get
guy's
doorbuster
name that was,
savings on Dell PCs with Intel Core processors.
that was
plus
like
free
Charlie
shipping.
Sheen's son?
Visit Dell.com.
Oh, Emilio Estevez.
Yeah,
was
Emilio
his
Estevez.
brother. It's his brother.
Okay.
yeah.
He was in it, being
Martin Sheen's son.
yeah. He was.
Adults, teens,
You see what he was doing? He'd be in prison for
stalking,
stalking.
right?
Old Emilio Estevez in that movie.
They're all right here.
I mean,
Oh, that was the one he
Yeah,
drove
that's the
up to
only
the
one-
camp and
Yeah.
everything.
Yeah.
Radio
And who was
The
the
only
only
thing
that
that-
was
The
what was
only
that
thing that they'll
woman's name?
remember.
Andy
Oh,
McDowell.
Andy McDowell.
yeah.
She was in there. God, that was a huge.
I'm telling you,
That was a
Sorry,
lineup,
but
man.
Emilio Estevez will always be the coach of the Mighty Ducks for me. I'm sorry.
Coach Bombay.
Yes.
The Flying V.
Flying V, bro. Knuckle punks. Yes.
That was a good movie. Yeah.
Putting its best on display.
It's kind of an addictive movie to me. When it's on TV now, I like
They're
sit
allegedly,
down and
they're
watch
allegedly
it.
supposed to be making it into a TV show.
Really?
Yeah.
I guess Coach Bombay needs some money.
Gets his third All-Star Game MVP.
I'm going to steal this other Jim Murray line that I'm seeing here. The only bad thing about Spokane is that there's nothing to do after 10 in the morning.
The game more competitive than
That's a great
recent
line.
years. The format saw James and Steph
It's like
Curry
you could
serve
say that
as
about
captains
a bunch of
who
cities.
drafted their
Yes.
teams. Austin Dillon takes the lead on the final lap, pulling away to take the checkered flag at the 60th running of the Daytona 500, driving the number 3 car.
Sorry, I got my analogies wrong. Danica Patrick is the Anna Kournikova of NASCAR.
I will agree 1,000,000% on
Yes.
that.
Well, she's done, right?
No, she's running the Indy 500.
That's accurate.
But
Lindsey Vonn is at least.
Yeah, then that's it.
Kournikova's hot though. Danica's just kind of, she's hot for a NASCAR driver.
What? She's pretty hot, I think.
Yeah, well, I mean, I'm not gonna say I'm gonna turn her down. I'm
Right,
just saying
but
that,
like there are levels, is what he said.
What?
Right, there's like hot tennis players and then not hot tennis
Wasn't
players.
she dating like somebody famous?
Save the food. Yes, she was.
Danica.
Well, no,
And
Danica
they
was
just broke up.
No, Danica was racing another NASCAR driver, Ricky Stenhouse Jr. They broke up. Now she's dating Aaron Rodgers.
That's what I said. Yeah, somebody big.
Your home for home team talk. Sports 1280 New Orleans.
Welcome back, Dunc and Holder. If you're listening to us on YouTube, you got our whole Brat Pack talk. St. Elmo's Fire got me fired up.
What a classic movie. And that when I
Yes.
ended up working at USA Today for a year, I tried to reenact that all the time because that was based in Georgetown, St. Elmo's Fire.
That makes
and I
sense.
can't remember what bar it was filmed at, but I used to try and hit them all just to reenact those great nights.
Did you try and reenact Emilio Estevez in that movie because he would still be in prison for stalking?
No, I did not.
To this day, he would still be in prison for stalking.
I don't. But that was like a generational movie.
Yes.
It started that Brat Pack, right? Then we ended up with Breakfast Club, that same group.
I'm not sure which one went first. We would need resident
There we go.
experts, either Dave or Clyde, to.
That's
give us
where
that.
that's where my kind of
Oh,
gets
you,
a little
oh,
fuzzy,
two, come
yeah.
on.
I mean, I
What's
know
St. Elmo's
what it is.
Fire?
But I mean, with that 16 candles,
I think it was the
weird
first.
science, all that kind of stuff.
I may be wrong though. I think St. Elmo's Fire was the first, and then they went to Breakfast Club, and that was when what's his name, Michael Anthony Hall.
Yeah.
Yes.
He jumped in there. He wasn't in St. Elmo's Fire, I don't think.
No.
was he?
No, he was in Breakfast Club. Yes. And then
Yeah,
they
I
went
think
on
Demi
Science.
Moore's first movie was St. Elmo's Fire. I may be wrong. IMDb would know, but I mean, maybe not our first movie, our first big movie.
Probably your first big movie.
Right, first
Yes.
one that hit. But anyway, we digress.
When Ashton Kutcher was like 2.
Yes, I want to hear more though about this quarterback. You've got me intrigued.
It was pretty intriguing, and of course, look, Peter King, MMQB, everybody knows it by now. So he puts out his Monday morning quarterback column, and projecting where some of these quarterbacks are going to be going. And of course, as I'm going to preface everything, Drew Brees will be thrown in this conversation until he is not a free agent after March 14th. So we already know Alex Smith is going to be with Washington, and so that place is filled. He's assuming Denver will go all in on Kirk Cousins, so he's pegging Cousins to Denver. He's pegging A.J. McCarron to Arizona. Interesting fit.
That is interesting.
Sam Darnold and Sam Bradford, the Sam Club in Cleveland. He's pegging those two there. And so New York Jets pegging Baker Mayfield and Josh McCown with the Jets, even though I saw something float across Pro Football Talk earlier today that the Jets are willing to spend as much as humanly possible to get Kirk Cousins. So they're probably going to be in on that race.
Holy cow, I didn't realize that. That's a Cousins I think's good. He played well against the Saints this year, I thought, here in the Dome. But I don't know if I would pay him elite money. Am I wrong? Do you all feel differently? I think he's good, but I don't know.
Well, when you are a quarterback-driven league and you have no quarterback and there's someone who's actually gotten to the playoffs and won plenty enough games, and if you get him in a system, he could be really good. I think in this day and age, you pay him. You got to pay him.
Do you have any pause that Washington is not committing to him? I mean, I realize they're not the most functional organization in the world, but they've had him in their building for years, and they're not paying him elite money.
I always question Washington's ability to gauge a player, develop a player, anything going on, and I don't trust them. So, no, I don't have any pause that Washington is saying, I think they've screwed up. I don't even know how many times they've screwed up either paying someone or not paying someone in the last 20 years. Just go back to Albert Haynesworth.
But they were right. I think they were proven to be right in the selection of Cousins over RG3.
Well, I think they were proven to be right that they took both of them. That was actually smart.
And they went with Cousins.
Well,
eventually.
Yes.
Eventually they figured out he was better. So I think that's – I don't know. I'm always leery, and I think you agree with me. We always see sometimes when teams give up on free agent players, Jarris Bird's a good example, C.J. Spiller. You always have to be a little leery when these players move on. Not all the time, but I'm always a little leery of, we're going to get something out of him that the other team didn't.
I do like to always put out the disclaimer because we're getting to free agency time. If a team goes all in on a guy and keeps him, that should tell you something. And when a team lets a guy walk, that should tell you something. So I'm exactly on your vote that there's something that this one team they're not too keen on. I'll throw another example out there that I anticipate that's going to happen. Kenny Vaccaro is going to hit free agency. I think we had Joel Corey on last week, of course, salary cap guru from CBSSports.com, and he says he thinks Kenny Vaccaro is going to be looking for the $8 to $9 million range. He doesn't think that's going to be out there for him, and another team probably has to wonder, okay, wait. He was a first-round pick. He was a starter basically all 5 years for the Saints. He was there, and the Saints are letting him walk. What's up with that?
Well, I mean, I think it's the same thing. I think the Saints know what warts Kenny Vaccaro has. Plus, I think the Saints are set at safety. I think that's the other thing.
And that's also, they did that by design because they didn't want to have a Vaccaro back in the future.
But I think circumstances are always different. The Saints brought in A.J. Klein. A.J. Klein's proven to be a good player, but he was back, in a log jam and never going to earn a starting spot. So he ends up, I think there's a case you could make that was a good free agent signing. There was a reason that he became expendable in Carolina. They were set at linebacker.
Yeah, I think that's different, that A.J. Klein is looking to get a starting job a la Senio Kelemete. I think he could start somewhere in the NFL, and I'm sure he's going to be looking for teams to become a starter because he's proven that he can certainly be serviceable as a starter in the NFL.
Yeah, I think he's a good player, and he will get a starting job somewhere.
All right, so let's pivot now to what Peter King had to say.
Pivot.
Going back to Ross and Friends, is that where you're going?
Yes.
Oh, my gosh, the fact that I knew that is scary.
Yeah.
I've been around you
I can't think of that word without that episode. Pivot.
Trying to move a couch up the stairs. Anywho.
We've all been there.
Yes, we have. So, Peter King, of course, thinks Drew Brees will be back with the Saints. And if that doesn't happen, we can just start lighting things on fire. You could go Philly fan and just start rioting if that doesn't happen. I'm giving you approval, even though that's not what I'm supposed to do. I'm giving this town approval.
I don't think you should do that.
Uh-oh.
I think we have enough. I think we have enough problems.
There might be some liability.
Why?
Yeah,
It might be.
I think we have enough problems in the city without.
It might
that
be
going
the
on.
one unifying thing that everyone in the city could do.
Yeah, burn stuff. break stuff?
No, the one
Light a
unifying
couch on fire at
in the
least.
city
Go West Virginia.
is that we all think the roads need to be fixed. That's the one thing everybody agrees on.
That's true. And keep Drew Brees. Well, no, people might say Drew Brees costs too much money. They can win without him.
Yeah, we
and
see
those
it in
people
our
are
comment
clowns.
stream every time we write a column.
Right, exactly.
People ready to move on. Man, have they forgotten? Look at what's going on in Denver. Look at them chasing. They've used a first-round pick on Paxton Lynch. They brought back, what's his name, Osweiler.
They have chased quarterbacks in Denver since Elway.
I know.
Jake Plummer didn't get it done. Who was after him? Brian Greasy was there for a little bit, and then he didn't
Jake
get
the
done.
Snake.
Yeah, Plummer. Tebow. That didn't go so well. They won a Super Bowl with Peyton Manning.
Well, they got
they
got lucky getting Peyton Manning that he was injured and was available.
And now they've got quarterbacks everywhere.
And they've rotated 3 already, I think, right, out there. And now they're back in the market.
Exactly.
You don't want to be looking for a quarterback.
Like the Jets. I mean, that they're in that market every year.
The freaking Saints did it for decades. Have people already forgotten?
The Billy Joes.
The pre-Drew Brees era.
I haven't.
It
what are you talking about? They had Aaron Brooks for
Aaron Brooks.
The Aaron Brooks era.
Yeah. We got to see backwards passes and be like, what?
Or error.
Jeff Blake. He was the starter that year until he got hurt.
Yeah, he had a winning record, and wasn't Aaron Brooks 4-4 that year?
I can't remember.
And I think Jeff Blake was 6-0.
I can't remember. I just remember Brooks had a monster game in the Dome against Denver, and everybody was predicting him to be the next big thing. And
next Joe Montana.
Didn't happen.
You're saying we were just maybe marginally off on him.
Well, I mean, he was a good player, but I think he benefited. I thought Mike McCarthy did a great job with him. It just shows you how good Mike is in developing quarterbacks and getting production out of quarterbacks. There's no mistake everywhere Mike's been, the quarterbacks have played well. And I think it's similar to the system that Sean Payton runs. I'd be interested to see how productive this system will be when we have another quarterback here besides Drew Brees. It'll be interesting to see.
Remember the controversy surrounding Aaron Brooks when he got elected into the Saints Hall of Fame, which is something we're going to be voting on here very soon. Our panel, yes, but we can't reveal the results, so don't look for them. Can't do it. Don't you leak them, Jeff.
I'm leaking it out.
Oh, boy. But, yeah, so let's tease it. Why don't we take a break? We know Drew Brees is going to be slated to go back to the Saints. Who are the other quarterbacks that may be being pegged as someone heading to New Orleans?
Chase Daniel's already here.
He's a free agent. The only quarterback under contract after March 14th is Taysom Hill.
Taysom Hill. The next quarterback is in the building. That's the quote from Sean Payton to Troy Aikman, I think.
Yeah.
I would not trust that. I'd probably trust someone in the draft over Taysom Hill, I'm just saying. This draft.
Taysom Hill's going to be the next great, wide receiver,
He'll be
Edelman.
Julian Edelman?
Yeah.
He might be 30 by the time he gets to play.
Also true.
Exactly. So, all right. Who might the Saints be looking at in this draft? We'll see next. Sports 1280, NOLA.com, the iHeartRadio app. Duncan Holder.
Join Corey Johnson on the neutral ground 4 till 6.
I
When you
hear
come to the
Peyton
neutral
loves
ground, you can
Mayfield
expect
too.
sports, news, politics.
I could.
food,
that's the kind of guy he
news,
loves.
I could
whatever's
totally
going on,
see
the
them.
vibe
If
of
for
the
some
city.
reason he was
Sports
like,
I
if
just
he
don't think
fell
they're
to
gonna get to him.
27, they would take him.
Oh, no doubt.
They would take him.
But I don't think he'll fall that far, do you?
Huffington sits
No.
down with
He might go
Emily
number
co-anchor
one,
of
for all I
CBS
know.
This Morning, Gail King.
That
The
is-
two have
no,
an
that would
insightful
be-
conversation on everything
Imagine
from social media
Mayfield
and the
and
hashtag
Peyton.
MeToo
They're
movement
like,
to whether Oprah should run for
Mayfield
president.
throws a touchdown. Everybody's crotch chopping.
Crotch grabs.
Oh, it's
choke signs.
The Sleep Number
Sean
beverage has
Payton would
some
run to
sides, so it's
midfield, and
perfect
then
for
they'd
both you and your
pretend to
partner.
take a selfie
Experience
together.
Absolutely.
Sleep Number
Absolutely.
Beverage
That's
at one of their 550 stores nationwide.
The Saints would go from the
sleepnumber.com/thrive.
mostly lovable
most cerebral
organization to just
quarterback.
absolute the Seahawks 2.0.
From the most cerebral quarterback to like insanity
Whether it's
with
just a
those
loose
two.
cable or time for a new one, AutoZone will
Peyton
test
might
your
need like a
battery
little
right on the spot,
change.
free of
Drew
charge.
being so
And right
boring.
now,
Yeah, I
get
mean,
a $10
just-
AutoZone
we need someone to light it up, man.
Buy 2 Bosch and Vision wiper blades. Visit any of our 5,000 locations nationwide, and let's get you what you need. Must buy 2. Restrictions and details in store.
Get in the zone, AutoZone.
The report says some of the big tech companies are throwing around the idea of teaming up with the NFL. Bloomberg says Amazon, YouTube, and Twitter are all weighing bids for streaming rights to Thursday Night Football. The three are bidding hundreds of millions of dollars for rights that will run for as long as 5 years. The NFL is looking for a technology company to offer an interactive stream with social media commentary and statistics that will entice
As
the
Loverboy
youngest
says,
to
get off
grasp
Aaron
on
Brooks. He
video
won our
games
first
and
playoff
Snapchat.
game.
Google is getting rid of
So
the
they
View
started
Image
6-0
button on its search engine.
I think they started 6-0
users
that
could
year.
search for an image and click the View Image
2000.
button to download it directly without leaving Google. Now you'll have to click through to the website hosting the picture and download it
Daryl
from there.
Williams covered
The change was made
the
because
race
of
with me on
complaints
Saturday.
from
He
Getty
said he listens to the
Images.
show every day.
Verizon is out with a new $30 per month
I saw
prepaid plan that gives you a half a gig of
And then
data
I
a
saw
month.
Joe
It's not the
Christopher,
best deal
obviously out there,
considering
and he
you
said
can buy
that
the
he had
next
like
plan
4 or
up
5
for
people talk to him,
$40
so
and
they heard
get
him
3
on the show.
gigs of data a month.
Wow.
Tech Report, Larry Olson,
Pretty good.
NBC News Radio.
The Crohn's and
All right, 10 seconds.
What about this? The new PR
invites
guy,
you to
Ryan
take
Martin, that
steps
works in
for
the press
cures
box,
at a walk
went to
near
my
you.
high school.
Support the
Seneca High School.
1.6
Wow.
million Americans
Freaking
living
unbelievable.
with these diseases.
What's the chance of that?
Get started at CC.
Oh, no, they didn't start 6 in a row. They won 6 in a row.
This is Dunc and Holder on Sports 1280, New Orleans.
Shout out to Todd T in Jackson, Mississippi. Regular listener emailed us. Jeff Blake actually went 7-3, and there was a 6-game win streak in that span. So that's what I keep thinking. He didn't go 6-0. But did win 6 in a row.
They started slow. That was my
Yes.
first year on the Saints beat. I think they started like 0-2 or 1-3.
Started
or
1-3.
Yeah, and then they went on a run, won 6 in a row, and that was kind of magical because that kind of came out of nowhere. That season came out of nowhere, just like 2006.
Yeah, that was Hazlitt's first year. That season definitely came out of nowhere, coming out of the abyss of the Ditka days. Holy cow.
Great. They had a great defense that year.
Look, Roy Glover was incredible.
Look
that
back
year.
at that. They had 60-something sacks. I think it's a team record. It'll never be broken. Never in this day and age. It's impossible to get to the quarterback like they did back then. I think it was 66 or 64 sacks as a team. Think about that. That's 3 a game. It's not going to happen.
No. And I'm looking back at that game right now, at those stats right now. Yes, Leroy Glover had 17 sacks. Darren Howard had 11. Joe Johnson had 12. Keith Mitchell had 6.5. Willie White had 5.5. They were
3 guys with double-digit sacks.
Exactly.
And
Not
the
just
defensive line.
not just like 10, like 11, 12, 17.
Yeah, it was a crazy year, but that was back when teams held the ball longer. Passing game hadn't quite blown up like it is now. It was just starting to kind of take over, and the league has changed now, and it's just harder to get to the quarterback.
No doubt about it. So, okay, we've been talking about free agency, draft, quarterback possibilities, and where do the Saints fall in? We know Drew Brees is coming back. All right, I'll take back my endorsing arson. I'll just do that.
Thanks.
Feel
Good.
free to just be angry.
Yeah.
Very angry.
Yeah, you want to.
And not damage property that you own or someone else may own. Okay?
Clyde is the voice of
Clyde.
reason. Look how serious he
Clyde's
is.
like,
Well, you're not
It
down,
doesn't make sense.
You're not
Don't
down
do
with,
it.
You're not down with arson?
No, I'm not down with arson. I'm not down with desecrating statues and things and stuff. And just don't do it. Don't touch anybody else's stuff. Don't burn your stuff. Don't make a hazard, people. Just don't do it.
All right, we're not going to have to worry about that. But, okay, the one quarterback that Peter King is throwing out there for the Saints, Luke Falk from Washington State. He's not a top prospect. Jeff, you might as well look it up where he sits on that draft cube.
That's good point. He is.
He left the Senior Bowl because his former teammate unfortunately committed suicide, so he left the Senior Bowl. But he was there, so so where is he? Probably a mid-rounder.
Fourth.
Okay. And Peter's saying that he's a precision passer in college, 69, 70, and 67% accuracy rate in his 3 years at Washington State, who could use some development. Now, here's the thing. Even if the Saints draft a quarterback, what are they going to do as far as Chase Daniel? And we know Taysom Hill's not going to go anywhere. Even if he's quote-unquote a quarterback, they're still going to use him on special teams because he was such a good player there. But you could still go get a rookie. And another name that he says wouldn't surprise him is Tyrod Taylor. I'm curious if Tyrod Taylor would want to come to the Saints and just be a backup. And how much would you have to pay him? And he's already got a good rapport, Drew, with Chase Daniel, obviously. And I don't know how much I'm buying that. I don't know.
Well, Tyrod Taylor has a lot of things I like at quarterback. He's obviously a very mobile athlete. He's not accurate as a passer, and that's a prerequisite in Sean Payton's system. You've got to be accurate. That's what Luke Falk has, but Luke Falk is not a really mobile athlete. So I don't think either one of those guys really fits what Payton looks. I mean, just look at the guys he's had in here. Chase Daniel's a terrific all-around athlete, mobile, pretty tight window passer, kind of a guy that anticipates more than just having a big arm. Luke McCown was like that. I think he loves Taysom Hill for his athletic ability. You've got to be somewhat mobile to play in this system, but you've also got to be extremely accurate with your passing.
Well, people would argue that Drew Brees isn't exactly the most mobile quarterback on planet Earth.
He's pretty damn mobile. He's not particularly fast, but he's kind of a phone booth quickness. I mean, the guy doesn't hardly ever. I mean, it's amazing.
All right, mobility and speed, I could get you. Yeah, because he can shift around the pocket and.
Yeah, he gets outside the pocket, but that's
true.
Mainly like awareness and stuff. He has like a sixth sense. It's amazing how he gets out of trouble.
You can't teach
that. Aldo.
You can't teach that.
Yeah, I agree, and I think he's underrated. I mean, one of the first stories I ever did on Brees back in the day was on his underrated athletic ability. I remember talking to Zach Streif about him. He said he was a really good basketball player in their pickup games.
Well, he's an incredible tennis player.
Right.
Growing up, played baseball. So he's an all-around athlete. There's no doubt about that.
Soccer.
Absolutely. All right, let's hit the phone lines here. We got a couple minutes before we got to take a top of the hour break. 504-260-1280 is the number. Let's go to Aldo. Aldo, thanks for calling Dunc and Holder. What you got?
Hey, what's up, guys? I just want to tell you, Saturday, somebody asked me who was going to win the horse race, and I told them, I said, bet on the one that Bravo's ride, okay? And hopefully he misunderstood me, and he bet the horse Bravazzo.
Yeah, instead of Joe Bravo.
Yeah.
Hopefully he did misunderstand
and secondly, you remember Taysom Hill is the second coming of Guido Merkins.
Is that a good thing or a bad thing?
I don't know. You tell me. Guido Merkins. Who can forget Guido Merkins?
I can, so it's probably not a good thing. I was expecting you to say he's the second coming of Tony Romo, because that's what Sean Payton did in Dallas. Undrafted quarterback, stashed him, and that was his guy. And he's almost saying that.
Do you remember who Guido Merkins is?
I know the name, but it's not like he was some superstar, right?
Exactly.
Well, yeah, exactly.
Exactly.
Hey, at least Taysom Hill can make a tackle, maybe block a punt, so you got that going for you.
Well, that's right. Guido could, too.
There you go.
Hail to Guido.
There you go.
Hail to Guido.
I appreciate the phone call.
I've got this. Guido Merkins was a wide receiver, quarterback, and defensive back in the NFL.
He didn't. So he just played everywhere.
Yes, he played 108 games.
I knew the name.
All right.
It's hard to not remember the name.
So he played. So let's see. So I'm looking at this right now on Pro Football Reference. He spent 6 years in New Orleans, 3 years in Houston, and 1 in Philadelphia. In 1982, he only completed 18 of 49 passes.
That's not good.
For 186 yards and 1 touchdown. Now, granted, in 1981, he caught 29 passes for 458 yards, averaging 15.8 yards per reception. Had 1 touchdown, as long as it was 50 yards.
So Guido it was like the modern day Julian Edelman, or the latter day Julian Edelman.
Yes.
And now Taysom Hill can be Julian Edelman. Let's do it.
He was quarterback, wide receiver, defensive back, punter, return specialist.
Yes.
Water boy. Wash the jerseys too.
That's exactly what this is now. So thank you to the caller for bringing up and invoking the name of Guido Merkins, which clearly Taysom Hill will be.
And remember last week when I was reading off those approximate values and that Brees was up around 20, the best season of Guido Merkins' career, he had a 4.
Good enough. Taysom Hill could get over a 4. Hour number 1 is up. Hour number 2 is on the way. We'll talk college baseball also in the next segment and have a good time here. Let's go.
As always.
Exactly. So on a Monday here, Sports 1280, NOLA.com, and the iHeartRadio app. Dunc and Holder.
Let's see what his rating was. His quarterback rating was highest of his career was, he had an 85.4. Oh, that was two attempts.
Hey, take it.
Yeah, that year you read off, Cloudy had a 38.3 rating.
Wonderful.
In 1985, he was 1 for 1 for a touchdown, 135.4 rating.
But save room for dessert.
No doubt, Guido.
Beautifully renovated dining rooms on the patio or belly up to the bar to watch the home teams play. Mr. Ed's Oyster Bar and Fish House, now open in the French Quarter 7 days a week at 512 p.m.
Selfless service is the guiding principle that drives Army National Guard soldiers to be always ready whenever disaster strikes. They are your next-door neighbors and your colleagues in schools, offices, and factories. To be a Guard soldier is to stand ready to serve at all times for family, for community, and for country. To learn more, log on to NationalGuard.com or contact an Army National Guard recruiter
like saying,
in your area. Sponsored by the Louisiana Army National Guard. Aired by
we
the
could really
Louisiana
rent a car,
Association
but
of
boy,
Broadcasters
cost
and this
effectively,
station.
I really would rather, us ride together, but then maybe get 2 cars. I don't know what to do.
Fox Sports trending now.
Today in Olympic news, the USA women's hockey team advanced to the gold medal game with a 5-0 win over Finland. In the Thursday championship game, the U.S. will face Canada, who shut out the Olympic athletes from Russia 5-0. American skier Michaela Schifrin has pulled out of Wednesday's downhill because of the women's combine, which she was favored to win. That would be combined, not combine. I'm thinking NFL already. But the combine was moved up to Thursday from Friday because of high winds in the forecast, and that tight turnaround would have compromised her chances. Meanwhile, it was the NBA All-Star Game, a popular event last night. Fans seemed to like the Team LeBron over Team Steph game, and the two players picking their own teams. LeBron with a 148-145 win over Steph's team. And James was named the MVP. He scored 29 points, was the leading scorer in the game. I'm Deb Carson.
Progressive presents Get Pumped. Inspiration to help you do insurance stuff.
Okay, time out. You're gonna let your budget be the boss of you? Take control with Progressive's Name Your Price tool. Tell us what you want to pay for car insurance, and we'll help you find options that fit your budget. Here's some music to get you pumped. Da-dong, 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 dang, dang. I hear your budget laughing at you. Oh, wait, that's just those kids laughing at me. Ignore them! Da-dong, da-dong.
Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Price and coverage match limited by state law.
Howdy, folks. Colonel Sanders here to tell you about KFC's $10 chicken shares. They're perfect to share with those special people in your life. Choose from 6 pieces of my Kentucky Fried Chicken, 9 extra crispy tenders, 12 hot wings, or a bunch of popcorn nuggets. So grab your buddy, your cousin, your dad, your college roommate, or my friend Joan, and head to KFC. Are you there yet? Okay, good. Now get to sharing and eating. KFC's $10 chicken shares. It's finger-licking good.
At participating KFCs only. Hot wings not available at all locations. Prices may vary. Tax and substitutions extra.
A norovirus outbreak at the Winter Olympics is spreading to the athletes. Several Swiss skiers have contracted the virus. They've been quarantined. The disease is highly contagious and causes vomiting and diarrhea. The Johns Hopkins School of Public Health is studying the accuracy and accessibility of fentanyl detection methods. Professor Susan Sherman says fentanyl is directly related to the increase of opioid deaths in Maryland and beyond.
In 2013, there's been a 30-fold increase of fentanyl-induced, overdose.
Her study found that a strip that costs just $1 and is similar to a home pregnancy test is one of the most accurate and accessible testing methods for fentanyl. Sherman's research found that drug users are highly motivated to test their drugs for synthetic opioids and other deadly chemicals. Health Update, Sarah Lee Kessler, NBC News Radio.
Do you know the power of a good idea? The Latrim Corporation has grown through people and their ideas. It all started in 1949 when our founder, J.M. LaPere, invented automatic shrimp peeling machinery that changed the seafood industry. J.M. founded the Latrim companies, Intralocks, LaPere Stair, Latrim Machinery, and Latrim Machine Shop. The people of these companies have patented hundreds of new inventions used around the world. If you have good ideas and want to help create the next Latrim innovation, visit Latrim.com for a full listing of positions.
To decide what kind of king you are going to be.
Black Panther is stalking record territory at the weekend box office. The first Marvel film directed by an African-American brought in an estimated $192 million during its 3-day North American debut. A distant second was Peter Rabbit. 50 Shades Freed is in third place. Jumanji: Welcome to the Jungle in fourth. And the 15-17 to Paris in fifth. NBA star LeBron James isn't going to let a Fox News host deter him from speaking on issues he finds important. James responded to Laura Ingraham, telling him to stay out of politics when he held his All-Star Weekend press conference in L.A. over the weekend.
We will definitely not shut up and dribble. I would definitely not do that. I mean too much to society. I mean too much to the youth.
Actor Sally Field is not shy about landing her son a date, even if it involves completely revealing his Olympic crush to the entire world. Sally's son, Sam Griesman, revealed to her that his Olympic crush was USA figure skater and internet heartthrob Adam Rippon, so she texted her son some advice
1 minute
to land his bronze medal winning Olympic crush, a conversation Griesman promptly tweeted. But that wasn't all. Field found a way on her own and tagged Rippon in Griesman's tweet.
On a river.
And the South may be the final frontier. Star Trek actor William Shatner is embarking on a new type of adventure. The 86-year-old star just signed with a country music label where he's working on a very special project due for release later this year. That's entertainment.
That's nice.
Cheap sunglasses.
My dad loves ZZ Top.
I love ZZ Top.
Send that will help people the most.
Shop dressed man.
What are we doing on baseball draft?
A sandbag, a doctor. Actually,
if
you send a monetary donation, you send
we got
all
an email
these things.
Fantasy, yeah.
Even a small donation can make
Everybody's
a big
debating
impact
March
and can quickly
26th,
become
different
exactly
dates.
what people affected by disaster need most.
In the wake of a hurricane, your monetary
Thursday the
donation can
29th.
make a huge difference to
Back
those
then?
in need.
Do that.
To donate, visit
Maybe Thursday 29th. I'll weigh in,
That's
say.
supporthurricanerelief.org. Brought to you by the Ad Council.
Can't do it the week before.
I don't know. I might be out of town then in London.
Duncan Holder, hour number 2 on a Monday. Larry Holder, Jeff Duncan, Clyde Verdun here with you. Been talking a lot of NFL stuff. Basically, prognostications and things we won't know the answers to for at least a month, I'd say, about free agency and such. But let's switch gears here, because last week we had on Paul Maneri from LSU. We had on Travis Jewett from Tulane. We also had Blake Dean on from UNO talking college baseball. And Clyde, I'll turn this question to you. Panic time up in Baton Rouge or what?
Yes, absolutely. Panic time. 1 series down, 3 games. The world's ending. Blow up Alex Box Stadium.
Okay, last hour you said I'm not allowed to encourage arson. Now you're saying to blow up Alex Box Stadium.
I'm just saying. Again, with no one in it. Wow, well done. Way to spin this back. Because clearly the absolute silliness of your question with the first week of the year underway means nothing. It means very little. Teams are still figuring out.
Does it mean nothing or very little?
It means a little bit less than this conversation that we're having right now. No, it's the first week of the year. Teams are still figuring out how to tinker with not only their pitching rotations, which will change between now and the end of the year multiple times. This is just those first opening bumps of the year. Obviously, if we're talking about LSU specifically, losing their first series since 1999, the first opening series of the year since 1999.
That sounds like a reason for me to panic.
They're lucky they didn't get swept.
Yeah, which is crazy to think.
Not in a way. They had to storm back on Friday night just to get
using
back into this.
Using Gorilla Ball, no less, which is striking, knowing how much they've changed the bats and the balls in college baseball.
That's going to have to be the MO for this team, I think.
Yeah, I think that's the thing that, obviously I didn't hear all of the interview with Paul on Friday because I was off, because thank goodness I needed today. But I know that from a lot of the stories that we've seen so far from Andrew Lopez and Ron Higgins from Baton Rouge, this team was going to be much different. They were going to have to use Zach Hess in obviously a different role, and we kind of saw at least part of that on Saturday, how that kind of went. But this team was going to need to figure out how they were going to generate offense and then have some at least more quality mid to late inning pitching to really try to hold down teams. And honestly, after they play UNO, which they play UNO on Wednesday in Alex Box Stadium, they have Texas this weekend, and that's going to be a tough matchup because Texas looks pretty decent.
Well, just a heads up, LSU beats Notre Dame 7-6. They have to storm back. Then they lose Saturday 10-5. They lose Sunday 11-3.
Getaway day, it's the worst.
And well, yeah, Notre Dame was ready to get away with the win, and they got it, no problem. And so. But Paul Mainieri did mention on the show how the starting pitching, basically the weekend rotation, he doesn't know how that was going to pan out. And I think we've seen early that there's a little bit of cause for concern. I don't know how good Notre Dame is supposed to be this year. Typically, they're pretty okay.
Yeah, they're solid.
They're always going to be solid, yeah. I mean, he had a hand in that with his decade plus being at Notre Dame and helping pretty much bring that program back to prominence. Paul Mainieri did. So, it's one of those things where I think, it's always those first weekend opening kind of weekend jitters that you always have to get through before eventually you kind of find a way to bounce back a little bit better than most. But I mean, they'll be able to do it this weekend again, because that's the one thing that LSU has going for them is that they play so many games at home. They're able to get so many teams to come and play them. The biggest thing for them is obviously they're picked to finish fourth in the SEC West, which is lower than what it is. But obviously Arkansas is a good team coming back. A few other teams in the West are going to be really, really good. Ole Miss being one of them as well. That they just need to tinker with as much as they can. But the thing that they cannot do that they did last year that I do not think will help them this year is they've got to be better in the midweeks. And when you're playing teams like UNO, Tulane, Louisiana Lafayette, Nicholls, Southeastern, teams like that in the midweek, you got to pull those games off. You can't have any slip-ups on those weekends because that's not going to help you at all. And then you're talking about going into May and June, looking at them snapping what is a very long streak of them being a national seed.
Well, I think that you make a great point. This team's not strong enough to have those kind of slip-ups this year. They're gonna need every win they can get. Because this is kind of a transition year. I mean, Paul Mainieri talked about it Friday. They've got 17 newcomers on the roster, and I think we had to expect some growing pains early on, and it's going to continue early on here. They're going to try and develop roles. Players are going to gain comfort in certain roles, and I think the lineup that he trotted out this weekend is far from cemented. I think we're going to see a lot of changing as Paul Mainieri and his staff tinker with the lineup and the rotation to figure out what works and what doesn't. You only know, I think who was it, Blake Dean or might have been Travis Jewett used the analogy, hey, we've been taking a lot of quizzes, we need to take a test. You find out about players and athletes and competitors under the lights in the games, and that's what they're finding out right now.
All right, we got a couple of sound bites, one from Paul Mainieri and another one from Paul Mainieri and Bo Jordan. We'll give Jacques Doucet from WAFB-TV a little shout-out to snagged him from his Twitter feed, even though our own Andrew Lopez took video. I don't know. It was easier to pull off of the old Twitter and cut and ready to go. So I did Dave a favor back in our iHeart studios. But let's hear what Paul Mainieri had to say on the weekend.
It's a long season, and I don't doubt that our kids are going to be fine. We're going to get back to work on Tuesday and get ready for UNO on Wednesday. And we're not going to point fingers at anybody. It was a total team effort, and it was just a terrible weekend for us. They totally outdid us in every phase of the game. So the only thing we can do is evaluate it, analyze it, pick ourselves up by the bootstraps, get back to work on Tuesday, and hopefully come out and play well on Wednesday.
All right, so they totally outdid them. That doesn't sound uplifting, Clyde. I'm not feeling good about that.
That's typical Paul after losses, so that's not a complete surprise to hear him talk.
But he's not inaccurate because they're lucky that they even got 1 out of 3. Now, here are some harsher words. This is from Paul Mainieri, followed up by Bo Jordan. Bo Jordan, whoa, he did not hold back what he thought. So let's play that.
I'm trying to look at positives for today. It's pretty hard to find them, really. This whole weekend, we just totally were outclassed, playing, coaching, just everything.
I told them out there, we have a legacy to uphold, and this is an LSU baseball legacy. We got to come out. We beat teams like this. They put our head in the dirt, and they dragged us all the way around the field. That's usually what we do to teams like that, and we didn't do it this weekend.
I mean, they drag their faces around the dirt. All is well. It's all
Overreaction
good.
Monday here, man.
Hey.
Overreaction Sunday.
I thought that was only reserved for us here to do this on this show.
It's
Apparently
college
This
baseball.
is why I got panicked.
They're going to play like
They
70
play 50
games.
They play 50.
I know
56
they do.
games in the season. But I mean, and that's the thing too about just we totally understand. It's the legacy of playing for LSU baseball. LSU baseball has this obviously gleaming among a bunch of the programs in terms of how they play, how they beat teams, and how they just battle. And they didn't. And unfortunately, the baseball polls are starting to reflect that a bit. Baseball America has LSU at 22 after they start at 17. D1 baseball has LSU at 23 after being at 16. Collegiate baseball has LSU at 15 after starting at 10. And Perfect Game has LSU at
That's a lot of polls.
16, yeah. No, there are like 7. Yeah,
what the heck's going on? How many polls
what's
are there?
insane is that college baseball has more polls than every other collegiate sport by a huge margin.
Why?
Because everybody
Everybody thinks they're
because there's no AP poll, right? There is no.
No,
AP
there's no AP
That's
poll.
why
But
everybody
like,
fills in and wants to be.
I would say that like Baseball America and Collegiate Baseball among many circles are the two.
Those are the two
most
I've always
used.
heard, right?
But I mean, D1 Baseball has changed now. D1 Baseball used to be a free site that just did scores. Now they're a bigger site where you can pay and get all this insider info, and they do a poll. And then Perfect Game is another type of site like that. So there are a lot of polls. They use them all. Collegiate Baseball
Jeff,
and
that
Baseball
sounds like
America.
you're your type of people. You love Twitter polls. Make a poll.
Make a poll. Or 2 minute baseball polls. And then 16 in Perfect Game after starting at 12. So maybe a slight overreaction, but again, you look at Texas, 14 in one poll, 19 in another, 19 in another one, and then 23 in the last one that I mentioned. So it's going to be a top 25 matchup again here this weekend.
Clyde, where's Ole Miss? Are they ranked in any of those polls?
Let's see. I'm looking forward right now. Yes, Ole Miss is ranked 11th by Perfect Game. Ole Miss is then, let's see, I'm trying to go through a few more of these here. As I go to D1 Baseball, they have logos. It's so much easier. They're ranked 9th by D1 Baseball. And so they're pretty good. 16 by Baseball America, so they're in the top 15, and they had a pretty decent weekend on their own and as well.
All right, well, I'm bringing them up because why don't we take a break right here on the show? We'll touch on UNO's weekend, we'll touch on Tulane's weekend, because Tulane picked up the sweep over Wright State. UNO won 2 out of 3 in the Andre Dawson Classic. Let's talk about that when we get back here on the show. And also, I want to bring up LSU basketball. Big win against Missouri. And I didn't have high expectations for LSU basketball going into this season. But now I'm to the point where it's like, wow, they're an entertaining team to watch. And I'm starting to wonder, man, what if they could have pulled off maybe 2 more wins in the SEC, flip the table, and they would have a legitimate shot at least being in the conversation of getting the NCAA tournament. I'm impressed.
Yeah, it's a wide open year this year. College basketball has never been more wide open. Everybody thought Duke was going to run away with that great recruiting class, and they're really struggling. So I think Virginia is probably the team to beat, but they've struggled in the tournament over the years. So who knows who's going to win this thing?
Absolutely. So, all right, we'll talk a little more college baseball, college basketball coming up next here. Sports 1280, NOLA.com, the iHeartRadio app. Dunc and Holder.
Yeah, I was going to mention, LSU plays UNO Wednesday night.
Yeah.
So.
I said that, yes.
Well, that's what Maneri said, too.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I wasn't listening.
Yeah, clearly.
I checked out.
Yeah, what a surprise.
Checked out. They're giving up 9 runs a game in those 3 games. They're not going to beat anybody allowing 9 runs a game.
Yeah. Hey, this is up Larry's alley. Jeff Jarrett is going to be inducted to the WWE Hall of Fame.
JEFFJARE-T-T-J.
Never met a guitar he didn't like to break.
Speaking of checking out, I'm back checked out.
I'm just reading something, dude.
Back checked out.
Yeah, you check out for the rest of the show,
Check out
bro.
wrestling and college baseball.
Check out for the rest of the show.
Never mind. Well, I got a 45-minute break last Friday, so your turn.
That's true.
Oh, my gosh.
I told Catherine that we got 3 calls. She couldn't believe it.
Hear music from the
3 calls on horse racing, Clyde, on Friday. 3. And got one today.
I'm glad I wasn't here for that.
Matter of fact, our last 4 calls have all been on horse racing.
So glad that I was not here for that.
Listen to
Just
special
saying.
playlists or an iHeartRadio original station like
And
Urban
some
Pop
bum
Classics
win.
and Motown Sounds, providing a soundtrack to Black History.
It was such a
Month all
shock
everywhere.
that Wayne Lucas wasn't even there. He was back in Oakland and his assistant there.
You're going to be blown away with 6
That was
months
crazy.
same as cash. And this weekend only during our President's Day event, we've got a daily mystery offer.
So the Pels are back in action
For just
Friday night, man. They
$1
have a long
or
break.
$5 or
All-Star
$20,
break. It's like
you
a
could
full
get started
week off.
leasing to own furniture,
I like it.
electronics, and appliances with no credit needed and free delivery and setup. Visit a participating Aaron store or Aaron.
Yeah, they got a tough stretch coming up.
To discover the
They got
daily
Miami at
mystery
home. They
offer.
should win that. Then they go to Milwaukee. They get Phoenix at home. They should win that. Then at San Antonio.
The NBA
At the
putting its
Clippers.
best on display as Team LeBron tops Team Stephen 148-145 in the NBA All-Star Game in LA. James setting the tone, 29 points, 10 rebounds, 8 assists. He gets his 3rd All-Star Game.
Shock.
MVP award.
Making sweeping judgments on any college baseball team before April or even May can be dangerous. There's a playoff. Any team can get hot. Any team can tank.
What if a team actually sweeps them? Can I judge if they swept them?
Austin Dillon takes the lead.
Partially.
On the final lap,
Partial
pulling away
judgments.
to take the checkered flag at the 60th
Here's my
running of the
judgment.
Daytona.
They got some concerns. There we go.
Yeah, there you go. See, that's reasonable. That's a reasonable expectation.
Pretty
Yes.
sweeping to me.
Won the
though.
famous race in the number 3 car at Daytona. Meanwhile, Danica Patrick ending her NASCAR.
Oh, did you get my email, Larry?
Oh yeah, I haven't looked at it. So what is this insanity?
Wardrobe malfunction for a French skater.
Medal game.
Uh-oh.
See?
The Olympics just got awesome.
There we go. I can get on board with that. Is that right? Break a leg and
News Radio.
It's
Nipplegate.
important to buckle up your
Nipplegate.
Sometimes car seats can be complicated.
I know.
And if your child's in the wrong seat and you get into a crash,
I know.
it could lead to a serious injury.
I know.
So you're 100% sure you have the right car seat for your child's age and size?
I don't know.
Don't think you know. Know you know. Car crashes are a leading killer of children 1 to 13. Make sure you have the right car seat. Visit safercar.gov/the right seat. A message from the National Highway Traffic Administration and the
This is Dunc and Holder on Sports 1280, New Orleans.
All right, so we can't overreact to LSU going 1-2 over the weekend. Can we overreact to Tulane sweeping Wright State 3-0? Just as many wins as they had in their first 15 games last year. They started 3-12 last year. Now they're 3-0 out of the gate, and that's why I brought up in the last segment, Ole Miss. Tulane's going to be heading to Ole Miss next weekend. They have no midweek games, so they're going to be at Ole Miss next Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. Should be an interesting test for Tulane. But look, Travis Jewett going into his 2nd year, and he was curious to see with all those new faces, we had him on last Thursday, how they would come out and react right away. And look, they had some nail biters, had a walk-off win in one of their 2 wins, but then were able to put it together in the 3rd game and win 11-5. Look, they're 3-0, and certainly a better start this year than they were last year.
Yeah, and I was over on campus the other day during one of their games, and they had a great crowd out at their stadium. So it was a good start for Tulane. They needed to start well, I think, after the way they started last year. And let's see if he can keep it going. They're kind of a mystery team right now. I don't think we know. Look, that wasn't the staunchest competition either. So
it's
we'll
not
find
Notre
out.
Dame. That's why Ole Miss. This is going to be a
Litmus.
massive test. Absolutely. So, but let's hear what Travis Jewett had to say after the opening weekend sweep.
On the weekend, you guys battled back in, I guess, all 3 games, but 2 one-run games in the first one, and today, obviously, wanting to come out and complete the sweep. Just what you thought of the whole mentality all weekend.
Yeah, I don't know if we ever established a lead, at all. We were just resilient, I told the kids, I thought every time they scored, we seemed to find a way to score, and if it wasn't all the time that happened, it was pretty much most of them. So that's just taking a punch, and be able to stay on your feet, so to speak, and stay in control of the bats and the innings, and we just found ways to kind of respond, and we just called it pulling on the Johnny momentum tag, and just pulled it back over in our dugout, and our guys were able to do that, and I was real proud of them. To me, that's a championship characteristic, and the kids kept me out and battled, and today was a big day. We put ourselves into the situation to get this sweep, and you worry as a coach sometimes about, is that good enough, and are the kids gonna think that they got to do something different than they've done before to get us to that point. But I thought our intent, our pregame, all that stuff like that, and the kids came out on point, and they got what they deserved tonight against a very good Wright State team too, by the way.
Now, we talked with Travis about no layups. Look, at Ole Miss, then they've got 2 games against Lamar, who is typically a pretty good team. Then they host Cal State Fullerton for 3, take on UNO, Southeastern. They host Purdue for 3, UL Lafayette, Southern Miss, at Long Beach State for 3, at LSU before they start conference play. So if they need a hot start because at some point along the line, they're probably going to drop a few games because that's just baseball. When you're playing that good a competition, you're not going to win all these games. It's just matter of fact.
Well, that's a perfect way to start the season. Play an opponent like Wright State, get them at home, get some confidence in your young team. Now you got to go on the road and play Ole Miss. We'll find out more about Tulane and where they stack up. I mean, Ole Miss has one of the best home field advantages in all of college baseball. That place is
right up there with Alex Box.
Yeah, it rocks. So it'll be a good test for Travis Jewett and his team.
And then out at the lakefront, the Andre Dawson Classic, UNO won 2 out of 3. They beat Illinois Chicago, who I looked up, supposed to be a pretty good team this year.
Oh, yeah, they're a good team.
Yeah, so that's a big win. They went 5-4 in 10 innings. They lost to Alabama State 6-3, but rebounded on Sunday and beat Southern 14-3. And Jeff, you mentioned at LSU on Wednesday, they take on Jackson State on Tuesday. So look, early tests for UNO and Blake Dean as well, especially that LSU is going to be gearing up for that game. They're going to be circling it after last year, lost twice to UNO, and they need to rebound after a tough weekend against Notre Dame.
Well, after hearing the way Paul Maneri spoke and some of the players, I mean, they're not going to overlook anybody.
No.
They're probably running stadium stairs right now. It sounded to me like they were. I think it's way overreact. I mean, Notre Dame's got a good program. They probably have a lot more experience coming back than LSU. I can't imagine they wouldn't. And I think more concern is the pitching staff struggles. As I mentioned, you're allowing 9 runs a game in 3 games. You've got to get that down, especially before you get into conference play down the road. But that's what this pre-conference is all about.
Well, when you hear the stat, they haven't lost an opening series since 1999. That one stat alone.
But they probably
gets the
play
panic
Notre
button
Dame
out.
or somebody.
I understand
like that.
Look,
probably
I understand
playing,
that.
the right states of the world.
Yeah, last year I think it was Brown.
Yeah, exactly. But no, you play Notre Dame, and there's some question marks. But that one stat alone would lead people to panic. And there's already people, even though they finished second in college baseball last year, there's always, Clyde, correct me if I'm wrong, there's always people on Maneri's case, even though he's built this great program and college baseball is so much more competitive. He's always going to feel
and that's what I was going to say too, Larry, to your point is that, I think one of the best things, we talk about this a lot, and we're going to talk about this especially with college basketball. Take college football out of the equation. Just take college football, put that in its own little box, put that on the shelf. If you look at the state of the NCAA currently, and you look at across the board in a lot of different sports that have 300 plus teams competing, in a sport like baseball, just like college basketball and a few others around, there's parity in this league. There's parity in this sport. Specifically, what I was going to go to is that one team that I'm sure is going to be on the docket for a few teams this year is going to be Southern Miss. Southern Miss went to Mississippi State, swept Mississippi State at Dudy Noble. That's insane. But that's what we're talking about. We're talking about a quality Southern Miss team who hosted a regional last year that UIC team was in last year. That's what we're talking about in college baseball. Like, college baseball is, with the amount of kids that are playing baseball, the amount of kids that are going to different schools across the country, across the region, you're going to have some parity. You're going to have some great gyms in these different leagues, in the Sun Belt, in Conference USA, in the Southland, in the SEC, in the ACC, whatever it is, the Missouri Valley, whatever it is. These kids are now spreading out. They're not just going to the big schools anymore. They're going to a lot of the smaller schools where they can play, make an impact, and these teams are building for these types of years. Every 4 years, every 3 years, if you get in great pieces, you can make a legitimate run at your own conference tournament, at making the NCAA tournament, and then going on a run.
Coastal Carolina won the World Series.
Coastal Carolina.
Stony Brook upset LSU a bunch of years ago.
Yeah. Your Fresno States of the world, like those teams happen, and they're going to happen a lot more now. Just all these kids who are being recruited by all these different schools are going to go to all these different places across the country. And I think, for me and my money, that makes the entire sport better, because it's not just Alabama winning every year. It's not just Clemson winning every year. It's teams like a Coastal Carolina that could go on a run. It's teams like an LSU that's still great, but they'll be great in a different way. And you'll have players that'll step up in the middle of the year like they always do, and they'll become fan favorites like they always do, and you'll remember the season for a different reason. That's where the beauty in watching college basketball, college baseball, sports like that really lies.
And you mentioned earlier about Texas. We'd be remiss if not mention it. You may have mentioned it because I might have checked out again.
We weren't talking about wrestling.
They opened with by taking 2 or 3 against Lafayette.
Yes.
And David Pierce's team is ranked 20th, but all 3 games very close, low-scoring games. And Lafayette, we always know they have a great program as well, and they'll be a power, I'm sure, this season. And that's tough. You open season at Texas.
In Austin.
You
Absolutely.
play a 3-game series, and you battle them. That's how you get better.
And again, that could say a lot about a team like Louisiana Lafayette that we'll see come across through this area a couple of times this year, and how the kind of law of, cognitive reasoning comes about with, well, this team beat X team
or the
by
transitive property
or whatever. Sorry, that's what I was looking for. Yes. My bad. Transitive property of
don't worry, neither one of them makes sense because it doesn't really mean anything.
It doesn't mean anything, because at the end of the day, you can't say that because Team A beat Team B 2 games out of 3 by X runs, that's how this team is going to do against that team.
Right, well, I think it's interesting, Wright State. So Wright State opens at Tulane. Now they obviously are staying down here. I wonder whether they're practicing because they're playing Lafayette this weekend in Lafayette, a 3-game series against Louisiana. Then they go over to Huntsville and play Sam Houston State. Then they play UT Arlington. So they're on this sojourn
and they
early
have to
season.
Be. And they have to be. A lot of teams in the Midwest and the Northeast.
I was about to say, where's Wright State?
Wright State
Illinois,
is in
right?
Illinois. Yes.
Yeah, a lot of those teams just come down here and stay. For
UIC, I believe, came for the Andre Dawson Classic, and then they're going to UT Rio Grande Valley next weekend. I think
he's
Nichols,
dug deep into the schedule.
Yeah, I think Nichols is either hosting Stony Brook or someone.
He knows way too much about this stuff.
But they're playing.
Why do you think we have
a 4-game series starting on the weekend, and then they're going to Monday. But that's what all these teams do. They come south to play in as many games as they can before they eventually thaw up north and in the Midwest, so that they can actually play a string. I think UIC is going to play a string of 15 home games after this next weekend. So a lot of these teams are going to play all these games on the road, then go back home and host like a dozen or so games before they open up conference play.
All right, let's take a break right here on the show. When we get back, let's switch it over to college basketball. Like I said, LSU big win against Missouri. Tremont Waters slowed down a little bit, but now he's starting to kind of pick back up steam. So that's a good sign for LSU. So we'll talk about that and just kind of the landscape of college basketball. UNO rebounded. Got to win in the Southland, but of course everyone else got to win in the Southland, so it's all still jam-packed.
Yeah, so, it's crazy. It's a crazy race.
So we'll touch on that. And then final segment, I want to get Jeff's thoughts on Adam Silver floating out the possibility of maybe just seeding 1 through 16 regardless of conference. So we'll talk about that. That was a big topic in NBA All-Star Weekend. So we'll touch on all that in our final half hour here on Sports 1280, NOLA.com, the iHeartRadio app. I'm Duncan Holder.
UNO at Nichols, February 24th.
Oh, dear.
Yep, I'm gonna be at the doubleheader. Can't wait.
I expect the pennant to be brought back
Yes, I'm hoping to acquire.
I'm never gonna let up on you. You know that.
Going this weekend.
I expect
Wait,
do they have pennants? Do they make pennants? Is Nichols even worthy of a pennant?
Oh,
I don't know. Have they reached that status?
I don't know. Do you have any Kentucky pennants you can loan us up here?
Kentucky got back on track, unfortunately, this weekend. And Louisville got crushed at home by North Carolina. It's not good. That's where I'm at in Louisville sports. I don't even watch their games anymore.
You just play North Carolina. They are.
I don't even watch. It's not even worth it.
Hey, y'all got a Randy in Metairie
okay.
who says you guys got it all wrong.
What all wrong?
About college baseball, that Rice always wins, blah, 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 blah.
Oh, we got it all wrong.
Okay.
All right, bring it on.
All right, let's go.
Yeah, you know, because that's what callers do. They fact-check hosts. I mean, sure.
Got it all
Yeah,
wrong.
because Rice has won a national championship in the last 20 years. Rice has been great.
Haven't they down like last year?
Yeah, because you know who they had in their coffers? David Pierce.
Grasshopper for its calls, texts, even
they had him as
voicemails.
the assistant.
Everything you need to simplify your business and stay responsive.
They didn't have to say him.
Have him like
Yeah.
as long as they even
customer
have him.
support.
All right, 30 seconds.
All right.
You're starting or growing your business. Grasshopper is the answer. Now get $20 off your first month when you visit grasshopper.com/radio.
Today is your last chance to take advantage of the President's Day sale at O'Reilly Auto Parts. Stop in today and get 5 quarts of Castrol high mileage motor oil for $19.95 plus
And they got the decrepit Wayne Graham who just won't give it up.
Why you bagging on
Because
him?
he is. It was between him and Texas coach to see who would like outlast each other and look the most decrepit on the sidelines in the dugout.
What's the name, Dave?
It's Randy in Metairie, yeah.
Randy in
Metairie.
All right. Welcome back, Duncan Holder. Let's hit the phone lines. 504-260-1280. Apparently, we've got it all wrong. Who's going to make it right? Apparently, Randy in Metairie. Randy, what's up? Thanks for calling Duncan Holder. What you got?
How y'all doing
We're
today?
good.
I got a little bit flipped here. Wright State consistently wins that conference. In fact, last year, Wright State opened the season to beat College World Series participant Clemson 2 out of 3 in Clemson.
Oh, well, we're staying corrected.
Notre Dame consistently has a losing record every year.
Well, Jeff, what's up with that?
I don't know.
and Mississippi
Speaking out of
State
turn
lost
here.
in Southern Miss, not at Mississippi State.
Oh,
sorry. I thought it was in Starkville.
All right, Randy's going to take over the show today.
All right, I'm putting on the headset.
We're having a case of the
So
Mondays.
give Tulane a little bit more kudos to that win, man.
Oh, no. Well, I have. I've been giving them kudos, and we've talked about it, how they have no layups, and if they play well in this early stretch, they've certainly got some good momentum going in the conference. I mean, look, we've talked with...
Yeah, but Wright State was far from a pushover.
Well, okay. I never said that, so all right, but that's good. Neither did...
And the one thing that y'all also missed was that Wright State went ahead 8 times, and Tulane came ahead. I mean, went back in the bottom of the inning and went and scored, and either tied or went ahead.
Yeah, that's what Travis Jewett said. We had the soundbite. Right.
All right, Randy. Look, they lost in the Horizon League tournament a year ago. They're a good, solid program. I'm not going to sit here and say that they're some superpower or anything. Come on. I mean, it's a good win. They got a good sweep.
Well, no, but they make the regionals like just about every year.
Well, they didn't last year. So, all right, look, it's not bad. Don't kill us for trying to.
Oh, I'm not killing y'all. Y'all just added a little bit backwards. I mean, LSU lost to a bad team.
We're not trying to discount Tulane. I think that's what you think we're doing, and we're not trying to
We're the
discount
biggest Tulane champions of all time on this program.
Exactly. We're the only radio show in town that's going to be talking about Tulane baseball on a regular basis. I can promise you that.
Well, that's why I come to y'all.
There you go. All right, we're in. Come on. We're in, Randy. We're all good.
All right, buddy. Have a good day.
All right. See you, Randy.
Angry Wave.
That's right, Angry Wave.
Angry roll.
Randy the
roll
angry wave. He's the human Angry Wave.
I just heard. Here's what I heard. Jeff's a hater. Clyde's a hater. I'm good.
I don't think anybody's a hater.
That's what I just heard.
Anybody's a hater, and I think that again, as we talked about specifically with the nature of college baseball over the course of a 56-game season, and not including the postseason, the regionals, super regionals, College World Series. It's going to be a long season, and you hope that these wins and or losses that you take are not nearly as good and or bad by the time you get to May RPI wise, because that's at the end of the day all that matters at the end of the day is, do you have enough wins and enough quality wins over high RPI teams and quality RPI teams to have a legit shot at either winning your conference tournament to get the auto bid, or being an at-large team to make the NCAA tournament field.
All right, let's switch gears to college basketball. I don't want to discount this because LSU, big win against Missouri, and I'm telling you, the more I talk about it, the more I'm like, man, what if they would have beat Vandy? They lost at Vandy early on when they were they were playing well, and Vandy's kind of a bottom feeder in the conference. Man, what if they would have beat Georgia? They've got so many good wins, and if you flipped a couple around, they'd be right in the thick of the SEC, and we'd be talking bubble as far as NCAA tournament because their RPI would be higher and their conference record would be higher. But still, look, moral of the story is LSU basketball. We talk about it every week that they're going in the right direction. We know next year the expectations are going to be big, but even if it's just what's going on with college basketball as far as them making the NIT, I'm in. I like that. I would watch it, and I'd be intrigued to see how well they do. And if they do well in the NIT, that only gives you more hope going into next season.
And I bet they elect to play, unlike they did when Ben Simmons was there.
Pretty sure they will play this time.
They'll look at it as a positive as opposed to a negative. But look, I don't think anybody expected – I think expectations were so low this year. I think the real challenge for Will Wade and his team is going to be next year when expectations are high and everybody's anticipating this freshman class to come in. And who knows what's going to happen with all this NCAA stuff and the FBI investigation. I mean,
that's maybe the most curious thing I'm curious about more than the NCAA tournament. I want to see what's going on with that.
Didn't your boy 40 come out with some more information? Thamel saying that basically what's going to happen by the end of the year is going to rock the absolute foundation of college basketball.
As many as 50 programs be affected, all the top programs. So we don't know what's going to happen. The landscape of the entire sport could be changed. But one thing we do know is that UNO is right in the midst of just a Donnybrook at the top of the Southland Conference. I mean, it seems like every team in it, in the top 4 or 5, has a shot. And it's going to come – that tournament, as we said before, is going to be crazy, Southland Conference basketball.
It's going to be bananas.
Absolutely. But, look, LSU beating Missouri 64-63.
It's a good win.
Absolutely. It's a good win because Missouri, you figure, is a tournament-bound team. And any of these big wins, you just look through some of the wins that they got as far as RPI. Like Michigan. Remember, they beat Michigan way back when. Michigan RPI is 28. Missouri's RPI, even after losing to LSU, 24. Texas A&M, their RPI is 21. Houston, their RPI is 19. And then Michigan, 28. Look, it's Arkansas, 25. Look, all of these teams, LSU beat. And you're wondering what could have been now. My expectations were low. Now I'm kind of wondering what could have been. Maybe they make a run in the SEC tournament. I don't know. But I'm curious to see how they finish off, and maybe they make a run. I don't know.
Well, the SEC is just crazy this year. I mean, it really is crazy. Auburn has kind of run off from everybody. They got a 2-game lead, but everybody else is in between, is within like 2 games of each other, 2 or 3 games. Tennessee's 9-5 in the conference, and the second to last team, Vanderbilt's 5-9. So there's not much difference between the top and bottom of this conference. It's going to be interesting to see how many teams get in the tournament because they're so balanced. I'm not sure if that's going to hurt or help them.
Yeah, LSU 75 in the RPI now, listed according to real-time RPI. And I keep bringing it up because they keep moving up. UL Lafayette is 40th in the RPI. 21-4, 12-1 in the Sun Belt. I keep bringing them in the conversation because they just keep rising up.
Yeah, they're going to be the favorite, I think, in their conference. So I would imagine we should be able to get at least one team in the tournament. There have been years recently where Louisiana hasn't put any college team. I think there's 13 Division I programs and 0 in the NCAA tournament. That's ridiculous. And I don't understand. I've gone on these rants before. I don't understand why we don't have good college basketball. I mean, it's a revenue-producing sport, and no one invests in college basketball in this state. Programs just – I don't know what happened to LSU. They were good forever with Dale Brown, John Brady, and then it just fell off the map, and it's like no one even cares. Now, I think Will Wade's got them back on track, but you cannot have such a bad college basketball program. I know we're in football country, but it makes no sense to me.
Yeah, there's that. I mean, there's the changing landscape of college basketball as a whole that I know that you've brought up multiple times, specifically when it comes to graduate transfers and transfers of players. I think that when you look at how college basketball has evolved over the course of the last, really, I think 15, 20 years, I think you're not so much looking at why Louisiana basketball has suffered in that realm. I think you've had to look at basketball and schools, specifically institutions. The Southland institutions, which make up more, I think, of the schools in the state of Louisiana than any other conference.
Probably.
You're looking at programs that are mostly dominated by football, sans UNO, but then you're looking at athletic departments with very low funding to have to work on trying to update their facilities. McNeese is about to build a brand new facility. Basketball facility.
That's what I was getting ready to say. When's the last basketball arena been built in the state other than the Smoothie King Center?
Yeah, other than Smoothie King Center. Yeah.
I mean, college basketball. Who's built a new arena in the last 30 years?
Not new, but certainly Fogelman has undergone some extensive renovations.
Right. Everybody renovates. The same venue, and that's the only thing you can do. You look at what ULM plays in, Jeff. I mean, I'm sure you've been in.
Yeah. What I'm saying is no one's built an arena.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there are no new basketball arenas in the entire state. There's 13 programs. Nobody's built a new. I mean, the PMAC is how old? In the 70s?
Yeah.
All of them were built in the 70s. All the arenas. Nobody's come out like Ole Miss did and built a new arena. And that just, to me, exhibits the interest level or lack thereof in investing in that sport.
But they're also they're also just got rid of or stepped down out of his own volition their men's basketball coach, and it's very possible they could lose their women's basketball coach this year too, because they're not having a great season either. But I mean, Stouffer just went through some renovations. They got a new floor that they were able to acquire, and then they went through a load of renovations to
bunch
the entire...
of Band-Aids, Clyde. Band-Aiding these old 70s facilities.
What else would you have them do? What else would you have them do?
Build a new arena. Build a new arena and become good in basketball.
How are you gonna acquire the necessary funds in the state of Louisiana?
Where higher
education,
do it right now.
Yeah, with higher education is what it is.
You got to raise it from your donors, your boosters.
But it goes out. But it goes further than that.
Take all this football money that everybody's investing in.
But you can't take that football money from.
Sure, you can.
From the coach at UL. You can't take it from Tim Rebo. You can't take it from Southeastern's coach. You can't take that money from them.
That's what they want. Programs.
But that money's for them. Like,
no, it's not.
I mean, it's at the same time.
Money goes into the general fund.
But how do you look at it as a university athletic director saying, I need to take this money away from, depending on if you're in the FCS level or the lower Division I level, and say, man, I'm going to put this in a new basketball arena because we need that to be good too. How many coaches are going to look at that and be like, I'm not going to hang out here.
Football funds every other program at these schools,
but not enough to where you can build a new facility for it.
In football, you got tons of money. Programs like LSU make $20 million a year.
I would argue LSU would be.
LSU could, yes.
That program.
And they need to look at it.
I would argue that Nichols can't. I would argue that
Southeastern can't.
Any other in-state
Tech can't.
Maybe I was gonna say maybe Louisiana Tech, but probably not ULM.
I would say ULM can't. I mean,
Lafayette, I believe, has been rebuilding every stadium on campus.
Yeah, but the football stadium, but the one they're not going to touch is the Cajun Dome.
That's what I'm saying. All these stadiums are being rebuilt on their campus, not basketball. That's my point. They're not. Nobody is wanting to invest in basketball at all in the sport. Look, my alma mater, I always bring in Louisville, and I know you all roll your eyes, but they built new stadiums every sport. They weren't just this windfall of revenue. How did Tom Jurgens do it?
Well, there's also talk that Louisville is quite unhappy with the fact that they built the Yum Center, the KFC Yum Center, with public funds that they're trying to still pay off, that they can't just use for just Louisville men's and women's basketball games too, that the city is also paying for still.
Well, it's a facility very similar to what we have here, the Smoothie King Center. Louisville wanted an on-campus facility, and everybody said, no, we need to build it downtown to revitalize downtown. So Louisville went along with that, got a favorable lease, a lot like what the Saints have with the Superdome. It's favorable because they agreed to go downtown. So it's a complicated situation. My point is,
And I'm not disagreeing with you, by the way.
My point is,
I totally would love them to put money
Louisville's
into it.
basketball and football programs funded their facilities, rebuild of all their other sports.
Yeah.
It happens all the time.
Yeah, but Louisville is a much bigger school than any other in-state school outside of LSU.
Right.
Yeah.
That's the point.
And I'm not disagreeing with you. I would love for schools
No one
to put
else,
more
no
money
one else
into
in
it.
all of the United States of America's, besides the Big Power Five, has built a basketball arena. Is that what we're saying?
I would say, I mean, obviously, you would say no to
Montana
that,
State hasn't built one in 30 years.
But every state is unique, and clearly for us in the state of Louisiana, we are not immune to the fact that the higher education in the state on every level has been absolutely slashed to the core, to the bone, to where at this point you're just trying to put whatever band-aids you can, because literally that's all you can do. That's all you can afford.
Just be fortunate. Just be fortunate if that you're Tulane, you're not even playing in the Superdome anymore. That you got a football stadium.
Yeah.
How long did it take to just get that there?
I know that was
a billion years.
That's going to be Rick Dixon's legacy, and he should get credit for that because
No doubt.
that was the most needed thing they have there. The Ullman Stadium is a gym. And it set up that program. If you're recruiting now their next step Tulane has to make, and Randy, I hope you're still listening, they need to build a football training facility. They need a weight room, a locker room, because when they try to recruit right now, they're up against it. They don't have these new facilities like some of the programs they're trying to recruit against in the American Athletic.
All right, spicy college facility conversation here on a Monday.
Would have called that.
I would not have seen that coming. So one final break right here on the show. I wonder how spicy Jeff's going to get when we talk about NBA reseeding. Man, spicy. So exactly. Eric Asher following us here. So don't go anywhere. Sports 1280, NOLA.com, the iHeartRadio app, and one more segment here on Dunc and Holder.
Eric is bringing you the truth every day, noon to 2 on Sports 1280. Of course, you can also check me out on the television side.
I'm like, dude, what are we?
Inside New Orleans
That's why it's like, we're the only show in the city, period, that will regularly talk about Tulane baseball.
He just wanted to say, you guys suck.
Right, exactly. It's like, get out of here.
Each and every day.
Right, because
statistics show that 80% of Americans will give up on their New Year's resolutions by February. But there's one thing Americans never give up: AM/FM radio. In fact, TV reaches 86% of Americans. Radio commercials just like this one will reach 93% of Americans in every single week of 2018. So if you want to reach more moms, fans, teens, professionals, shoppers, and well, more of pretty much everyone, radio's the way to do it. Make a resolution to go to iHeartMedia.com and put radio to work for your company in 2018.
Just a breakfast bar now?
I don't need anything.
Today is your last chance to take advantage of the President's Day
my
sale at
stomach,
O'Reilly
I'm
Auto
hungry.
Parts. Stop in today and get 5 quarts of Castrol High Mileage Motor Oil for $19.95.
Because my stomach don't, I'm hungry, so.
O rewards points with this purchase.
ever
Protect your
since I've
engine with
gotten
Castrol
sick.
High Mileage Motor Oil at O'Reilly Auto Parts. Better parts, better prices
just
every
haven't been
day.
eating as
Limit
much, I
supply.
don't know
See
why.
store for details.
Like 15 pounds.
That's not terrible.
I'm not like unhealthy. Like I can go out and do stuff and like play sports.
Quitting tobacco can be tough,
Like lost
but
weight.
you
I was
have
like,
a
all right,
powerful
I gotta,
team on your
yeah,
side.
I could tell. I gotta
1-800-QUIT
my
now.
belt. I gotta use
If
the
you want
next
personal
loop.
use the next loop then.
we got you.
Yeah.
If you need nicotine
good sign,
replacements
yeah.
or a
I was
quit
like,
plan,
all right,
we
I'm gonna
got you.
keep this off.
And if you're
I
ready to
know.
change
Starvation.
your life, we got the support you need.
That always works.
Most guys who use tobacco want to quit. The failure is in not trying.
Jeff,
You
me
may
and
even
Joni went
qualify
to eat
for free
Tavolino's
services.
Pizza
Call
on
1-800-QUIT.
Saturday.
We're here
Oh.
24/7 to support you. We got you
Only
back.
getting better.
To make today the day you quit for good.
Only getting better. They had like the
Serving
donuts.
the best
fried chicken
and they had the
fresh
dipping
Louisiana
sauces.
seafood, as well as delicious Italian dishes.
Honey,
Try our daily chef special.
goat
on
cheese
overstuffed
dipping
bowl
sauce.
open
I
Monday
mean,
through
you could
Saturday
put
from
that on
11
a
a.m. to
turd
9
and eat
p.m.
it. Would make
Two
the
locations.
Wow.
It's like
Wow.
the best sauce.
Really?
Dipping-
30 seconds.
Like the
Wow.
best sauce
I'll go over there with you sometime.
That's disgusting.
Yeah, they got great drinks.
Let Mr.
Telling
Ed's
you.
cater your next event.
It's great.
Mr. Ed's
The pizzas,
Seafood
you know,
Italian
big old
Restaurant.
large
Two
pizza,
great
$16,
locations,
and
one
it's
great
awesome.
Mr. Ed's
Prosciutto
Restaurant
and all this
Fish House, now open
crazy
in the
stuff.
core 7
Dude,
days
it's
a week
awesome.
at 5 to 12 p.m.
A more peaceful, healthy world happens one person at a time. Around the globe,
He's
there
asking,
are
could you do the
children who
22nd,
dream of
Thursday
helping
the
their
22nd?
families,
That would be
who
much
hope
better.
for the future.
I could do that.
And
Yes.
who have a name.
That would be much better.
Know the person you're helping
yeah.
directly at
Because I'd be coming home right from the owners meetings and did the 29th.
Okay.
Joey's off that week, so she March 22nd.
Dunc and
I'd
Holder now.
text him.
Eric Asher next at noon on Sports 1280 New Orleans.
All right, Jeff. The Pelicans might not have to move to the Eastern Conference after all. NBA Commissioner Adam Silver over the weekend, floating the idea, well, I'm sure he was asked about it, I'm sure he didn't just volunteer it, about possibly reseeding in the NBA playoffs. And we've heard the argument, especially here in New Orleans, because the Western Conference has been so good consistently and better than the Eastern Conference. And, Jeff, you were just saying, no thank you, sir. No, none of that.
Well, I
want nothing.
I just think it's an overreaction to a cycle right now where the Western Conference is kind of dominant. But I think it'll revert, as it always seems to do. As these young players that are coming into the East, the dominant young players we see right now, Ben Simmons, Jason Tatum. Of course, we don't know what's going to happen with Markelle Fultz. That's a whole other story. But this draft coming up, as I've mentioned many times, loaded with young bigs. Who knows, in 5 years, the Eastern Conference might be dominant as we cycle out of this Western Conference cycle. So I'm not ready to do that. Let's just leave it the way it is. There were years when the Boston Celtics dominated and the Knicks and all those teams, the Pistons, the Bulls, and now it's the West. There's no reason to overreact. I don't like it, but I'm a traditionalist too, so I may be in the minority.
I'll just read what Adam Silver had to say. He says, I've said in the past the obstacle is travel, and it's not tradition in my mind at least. It's that as we've added an extra week to the regular season, as we've tried to reduce the number of back-to-backs, that we are concerned about teams crisscrossing the country in the first round, for example. We're just concerned about the overall travel that we would have in the top 16 teams. So that's his big thing. But having said that, you also would like to have a format where your two best teams are ultimately going to meet in the finals. And obviously, if it's the top team in the East and the top team in the West, I'm not saying that this is the case this year, but you could have a situation where the top two teams in the league are meeting in the conference finals or somewhere else. So we're going to continue to look at that. It's still my hope that we're going to figure out ways. Maybe ultimately you have to add even more days to the season to spread it out a little bit more to deal with the travel. Maybe air travel will get better. All things we'll keep looking at. It sounds like if he wouldn't have to have, say, Sacramento makes the playoff or Golden State has to go take on Miami in a 1-16, right, he would do it. That's what it sounds like to me.
I don't like that. I like the tradition of East versus West, just like the American League versus National League. There's times when one of those leagues is going to have the two best teams in baseball, but no one overreacts to that. And the same thing with the NFL. I mean, are the two best teams always the AFC champion and NFC champion? I don't think so. So why are we overreacting to that? I think it's silly. I don't agree. And I like Adam Silver, but I think they're tinkering too much here.
So the two best teams in the Eastern Conference are who this year? Boston,
Toronto, and
Cleveland, Boston, and Toronto. Those are three good teams. Three very good teams.
You don't think Houston and
I don't think the West is nearly as strong. I think after you get past the top two, it drops off considerably. I mean, right now, as much as I threw a shovel of dirt on the Pelicans season, the Pelicans are, what, how many games out of third seed are they?
Not much.
I think it's
maybe
like
a game.
Yeah,
maybe two games. Maybe like 2 games.
No, it's more than that. It's 3-4 games. Yeah,
3 games or something.
San Antonio is 35-24. Minnesota is 36-25. Oklahoma City is 33-26. Denver is 32-26. As
the Pelicans are 3
Portland.
games out of the third spot.
3 games. That's my point. That's my point.
And they have a game in hand because they got to make up the.
They're a game out of the 5th spot.
Right. And third, but it's not as deep at the top as we thought. It's deeper in the middle, I think, by far. I think what we've got is 9 teams fighting for 6 spots.
Well, if you look at the standings in the Eastern Conference this year, actually Toronto's number 1 right now.
Right.
And you look at the 8th seed, the Miami Heat, they're 30-28. So it's not like they're that much different than the Western Conference. So this year probably isn't the best example to even float that idea out there because both conferences seem pretty even.
It's not, and I think that's the reason why, for Adam Silver to bring it up is still one of those things of him being forward-thinking or one of the more forward-thinking commissioners in professional sports. But the biggest thing is that fans are talking about not seeing again for the 4th time possibly Golden State, Cleveland. But at the same time, though, we've gotten 3 really good finals out of that.
And let's not forget this. Just in the last few months, you've had Gordon Hayward Rodney Hood, Larry Nance Jr., all these players go from the West to the East.
Yeah.
In trades, for whatever reason, Gordon Hayward went in free agency. The Eastern Conference is getting better. Cleveland's been bolstered by this windfall of talent that's come from the West.
Trade away half their team.
Right. So I don't know. I think it's silly.
Absolutely. Well, good conversation today. I didn't know Clyde and Jeff would be beating each other over college facilities at Louisiana Eunice or whatever, LSU Eunice.
LSU
build an arena, for Christ's sake. Build a basketball arena.
And guess what? Good win by Tulane, beating Wright State. Good stuff. All right.
And bad loss for LSU, losing to Notre Dame.
It's over.
The angry wave.
It's not really over. So, all right, Eric Asher coming up next. We'll be back here tomorrow. So coming back, Sports1280, NOLA.com, and the iHeartRadio app. Dunc and Holder.
All right, gang.
Thanks, buddy. What is this pardoning of the crawfish?
Wait, what?
A norovirus outbreak at the Winter Olympics is spreading to the athletes. Several Swiss skiers have contracted the virus.
Norovirus.